officers there in 48 hours.
But what about the suspect? Why
The
is
suspect that we won't find out.
this mystery suspect who would be the other witness?
So when Bernstein puts out that report, and in a couple months saying no charges will be filed, that's when we'll release the name. But we won't hear that because they never did the follow-up.
And they're gonna do that in a couple of months because the sensationalism and the thought of that is gone. You
No.
will not miss it.
You know, it says that police already have a version that's going to satisfy their base. This is absolutely true. And actually, that's the only version we're getting in all this. John.
Exactly. I was going to say, me being from DC and New Orleans, we're so used to this because there is no free press or free media. All of this is spin because all of these are spin doctors. Even our Washington Post and the Washington Times are African American.
Well, you know who just chronicle Washington Post now? Peter Herman. You know where he came from? Baltimore Sun. I mean, they're really good at it here. So good that they get exported to other cities to do it. I'm serious. I'm not serious.
Al Jazeera sent Adam Made Al Jazeera from WJC 13.
It all starts from.
He's doing America Tonight now.
Talking about the nation's capital where you have senators, congressmen, everybody even from Maryland, you know what I mean? And a clergy even has its own spin doctor, so to speak. Now, to be the free lance paper that we're going to be the voice for, we really have to realize that how we disseminate information and how we also try to get information.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And the key to that is there is no front doors to it.
No.
You know what I mean? So
Even the back door, I get kicked out.
yeah, I mean, do we have to?
We gotta take every opportunity that we get and use it. We cannot
Absolutely.
let it go when it comes by. You see something, you got time, you got your business, shop it when you know, it is what it is. If we don't sit here and do this, they're gonna continue to do what they're doing. I'm from Chicago, this coming.
City, I spent a lot of time.
It's coming, and what they're doing up there is coming here. And if you don't stop it now, you're just gonna get rolled over.
But our key thing is being others.
Yes, absolutely.
Each person in here has 10 to 20 people on Facebook or anything else, and that's how we really get the information out. Now, with the things that we see on YouTube and everything else, with people like my brother here with the camera on the buses and everything else, we need a mainframe, so to speak, where we can bring it out before it gets out to anyone else. You know what I mean? And put our, not only spin, but we have to put a whirlwind on it. Because before we even put it out, if one whisper of it gets out, they already know where we're coming from. I guarantee you right now, because we've been on Facebook, myself included, I know I'm guilty of this, but I had 2 officers approach me today and say, are you headed towards the red element?
Well, they don't have to question me, they just tell me, so I mean.
But it's best that we do it like that because of their law.
I said, they don't have to know us, we have the best call.
Is that today or you're going to go?
Lord.
The east side, amazing grace church, isn't that a good name? And we were talking about these same issues in that community.
One of the goals that this man stated, and I do thank you for allowing me so much time, for inviting me to, is, you know, an independent citizen review. This is kind of what this process is. This is just one side of it.
Right.
The other side would be actually finding the witnesses and talking to them, but they keep it from us. When I go out to the scenes, a lot of what you may see on Twitter and stuff is a picture of the scene and some of the stuff I observed. But part of the real reason I'm there is to try to talk to people. What did you see? What really happened here? When I went to my dominant at that police ball shooting, I talked to several witnesses. Everyone said the guy was running away. I'm not a threat to you. I designed that t-shirt. If you can read this, I'm not a threat, because if I'm going that way, I'm not a threat. Yeah, you know, the guy's hands are there. I have the front of that. Yeah, I never sold it, but I make good money now. But everybody said that, but somehow that police shooting was justified from this man who essentially, you know what his offense was, by the way? Does anybody remember?
Which one?
The one about Donald Subway. He drove the wrong way on a one-way street.
Right.
And the officer tried to stop him, and he bailed out the car and ran. So he got attempted murder. This is when he shoots him. He didn't die. That's attempted murder because he was escaping.
And they're gonna bring up if he had a criminal record. He
Oh,
jumped out
absolutely.
the car, too.
By the way, whatever happened in that case? Who knows? It's
Nobody knows.
just kind of match, and that's what they try to do with all of these. That's one of the main reasons you don't get the names also, because the names allow you to follow, allow you to track this person down. They try to bury it, and then the next snow or the next Colombian mulch, you know, that's all we're gonna hear about, and we've all forgotten, we've moved on. I'm gonna hit the last couple points and yield over here. In the near bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs up, we finally get the definition. This is at the bottom. Most people, very busy, short attention spans, a Twitter-fied, MTV-eyed world. They skim articles. They don't read them to the end. We're told at the very top, these guys were in someone's house impersonating police officers. That's bad. I don't want impersonating cops coming to my house. It's not defined until all the way down here. Simply as both were clothes that had the word police on it. The word, so you don't even know if it even looked like a police type ad. It just said it somewhere. It could have said something like,
Fuck the police.
excuse my French. Or excuse my French. It could have said that. It could have said that. Because this is all we've gotten so far, that both had clothes that had the word police on. But you see where this is? You see how deep it is? We have to go to the bottom of the second page.
That's propaganda.
All the way down. But I just want to make my things. I can't do this in 140 characters, you see. I have to walk you all the way through. Look, I took the scenic route to get here, but hopefully it was worth the trip, right?
Did not impersonate.
Right, that's the other part of it. They put that in the bottom too, that it is not believed that they impersonated police officers to get into the house.
So why is it relevant that they have clothes on that says police then?
And why that's stated at the onset. I want you to see how these award-winning journalists from this great newspaper, how they poison the mind of this propaganda. That's so far in there. It's so deep in it. Look, it's right there, second to last. The detectives believe the men broke into the house, but did not impersonate police to get entry. So why do you think they were impersonating police? They weren't, evidently, because, you know, maybe they just like fashionable clothes. I have a shirt from the show Homicide, my favorite Baltimore crime drama. More favorite than The Wire, just because some of the characters and stuff is the original. I love the show, and of course, because my dad did, that's my story. It looks like the Baltimore police patch and all that, whatever, but it says, you know, Homicide crew, as in the people who worked on it. And on the back, it has the logo of the show. So if I wore that, it could be argued that I was impersonating. No, I'm impersonating fictitious characters, if anything. But I really want to drive home the point. When you start reading these articles, see this. Leo's a master doing this. Everybody here, almost everybody here is on Twitter. If you're not, you should be. And part of our homework assignment has to be dissecting these types of stories. Sometimes it can be summarized in 140 characters. Maybe you have to do it in 2 parts or whatever. But then asking the sensible questions of the authors. If enough people start doing it to them regularly, they'll start to change. They will. They won't do a 360, but one big change we want. And tell me if you noticed this. They used to love telling these crime stats. Crime is down by X%. Now they say reported crime, because people like me constantly say, that's the crime numbers you have for people actually reported. Half the people who are victims to crime in the city don't report it. Just like sexual assault victims, because of various reasons. A lot of rapes happen, you will never know about it. So you cannot take that number and say, well, this is gospel. It's not. But, worse than that, we have a lot of evidence to believe that the rate of non-reporting is increasing because of disappointment in police response. Stop snitching. There's so many reasons. So those numbers are worth very little, actually. Very, very low. But now when they put those numbers out, we put that little caveat, reported incidents of muggings, reported incidents of that. And I'm taking part credit for it because people like us, we've been just hammering away. They can do whatever they want, but between each of us, like you said, each one of us knows 10 people that respect us. And those people know 10. And when you counter the narrative, and posit a opposing viewpoint, it helps balance it out there in the universe. Okay, they said this. There's something to it. There's some truth in that. We're saying this. We're saying a shirt that says police is not impersonating an officer. We're saying, well, you didn't talk to any local attorneys or civil rights activists about whether this was cool or not. You talk to people out of state, whatever. And that's my homework assignment to anyone doing this, is to start monitoring this stuff, reading these stories carefully with your third eye, and not just catching it, but putting it out there. You're not just putting it out there into the mythical universe, you put it out there into the Twitterverse, into the internet, it never really goes away. When you respond underneath their Twitter, anybody who puts on it is part of the chain. When you do searches, if you use the right terms, it comes up in the results. You have to do this stuff to counter the bull that's out there. That's all I have to say. Thank you all so much for your attention and for listening.
Yeah.
Quickly, was there any other questions? I asked you a few. Leo always has questions.
Well, I was gonna say, this is such a good demonstration. I found it so useful having the whole thing broken down like that. Why don't we all collectively take our game up a notch from just agitating to the police and Justin Fenton on Twitter? What do people think about the idea of making a centralized website?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, we should. I used to be part of one.
That's what we.
You remember News Trust?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
one of the
that was good.
founding members
Yeah.
of that, and it was funded by billionaire George Soros. But they did it as an experiment in Baltimore, and it was a great experiment. I have a nice little award I won for it, a plaque up in my. They never tell you this, by the way, when they put their version of my bio as to why I deserve to be arrested and all that. They don't tell you that this was in partnership with who? Baltimore Sun, among others, and we did News Trust, and this is what we did to articles. We rated articles as a collective community. We gave them a star rating. We put in little analysis of it. How credible is this? How many independent sources did they cite? What was the tone? What was the context? And we do this all the time. The editors submitted articles. You submitted articles. It was a great thing. I think it got killed because because this is embarrassing. When you put this out to enough people, and everybody starts looking at it a little differently, and their subscription base is dropping. It's dwindling. They're only getting town, so they still have a very efficient base, but it's not growing. It's not improving. And greater than that, the level of skepticism out there is growing greatly. So I think that's the real reason News Trust got killed.
It's not just
the website. It's when we were talking about the curbing. That's a whole.
That's another story.
That's a whole other story, but it goes along.
Tell them briefly though.
About
what we discussed.
Yeah, the curbing where the brother was coming from a bar and he mysteriously fell in the water.
The military service.
Yeah, but it wasn't just that. 3 weeks later?
The one right now.
Minneapolis. Yeah, that's 3. That makes 3.
Now, how many cameras
Wait,
do you count?
you guys are starting sentences and not.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm
I'm getting to it. There's 3 different quote-unquote murders, homicides, whatever, that have happened in, 4 months' time?
Actually, the count was about 6.
6 altogether?
Yeah.
Well, he's dead now.
People that have shown up in water, because my point is not just the murders, it's the whole corruption of Baltimore City in general. Because you can't just look at, me personally, I can't just look at, the murder, it's everything.
And you're saying the people who show up in the water, their death is undeterminable
Always.
because.
No, actually, they're going further. They're saying accidental, which is determination.
Well, with curbing, they didn't even want to deal with it. They brought in, the National Guard, which is, blew our minds. And that was personal because it's a personal friend of mine.
We went down.
Yeah, we went
How
actually
many
went
cameras
down.
do we count between
What,
the
5?
bar and the water? They can't provide one single video of anything showing
But if
them.
I snatch the purse, I'll be able.
But it was accidental. No, I'm glad you said that word, undetermined. That's another way to keep the murder rate, the numbers down. We have hundreds of deaths that happen in the city that they check off the box.
Tyrone West was
So that's not a murder. You get to say your murder rate is X amount when you have a whole bunch that are undetermined. I've taken classes from the medical examiner's office at University of Maryland School.
You go online and take it.
There's only 4 check boxes when a person dies. It's natural causes, it's homicide, accidental, or suicide. Undetermined is not. It's really not. It's like, how did they die? It's either somebody killed them, they slipped and fell, or they were just old or whatever. The disease caught up to them. But this undetermined stuff, we have it more than anyone else. It's, in my opinion, I can't prove it. It's just a straight cover. It's a very easy way to dilute the true amount of homicides we have. There, nobody questions, nobody looks at it. And when I do it, do my analysis and use, but I don't know.
I was getting back to the articles, considering I work for a paper, and also speak on the air as far as the blogging and texting. But one major issue issue that I spoke with a representative from the ACLU as well as the Urban League, is they're going after some of these quote-unquote writers for, this is called jury rigging also.
Call us.
Jury rigging.
Oh, yeah.
Jury rigging,
You
yeah.
have a right to a jury no matter what you are charged with. And due to the fact that you're giving this blatant misrepresentation of any case, you're stating that what you're doing is formulating an opinion prior to even being able to have a trial amongst your peers, for one, and two, have a trial in which you think that you even have an opportunity to even win. Because both of these are already proven guilty and have not been, like you said.
Guilty to proven innocent.
Exactly.
Quick question for you guys. I'm glad you brought that up, because this is just one. We were told over and over that they were impersonating police officers, right? One guy's alive, we hope. Even though Fenton said he already was dead, but we don't know. Nowhere in there does it say that he was charged with impersonating police officers.
Exactly.
So why would the writer try to tell us that he was? If that's the case, my God, charge him with whatever you can. But if you have a suspect arrested as an officer, you charge him with everything that applies.
They don't charge anybody on it the same way they did you.
After the fact. But did you notice that there's no word actually of what that other guy was charged with? We don't know if he was charged at all. We really don't. And that's really weird. Just be frank, it's really, really weird.
Well, if the shoe was on the other foot and anybody in here spoke these words that have been here, quote unquote, you can be charged with inciting a riot.
Yeah.
And Bible.
Yeah, among other things.
Every time we're talking about propaganda, we're talking about the analysis, I just want to remind everybody that this blame the victim ideology is ancient.
That's right.
And I think it serves two goals. I think it helps people think they're safe. No, it happened to him because he was the police officer. Not happened to her because her skirt was too short. But this blame the victim ideology.
Right,
Exactly. So therefore, they're justified in being killed. So I think we need to recognize that to me, is a common presence, as well as terrifying black male that has been in literature since, at least in America, since the 17th, certainly by the 1800s. That was the terrifying thing. That was, justified for lynchings. It was, again, blaming the victim, but in this case, you're blaming a race, and you're just trying to create terror. But if we can just kill black men, then that's okay, because we all know that black men are going to do X, Y, and Z.
And they're allies.
You know what's disturbing about this? I'm sorry.
No.
What she said, blame the black man. And we know this is a stereotype that's been fed into society. That's society, right? But when you have trained professionals who use it, that's disturbing. Anthony Potter, when he shot himself, that's what he put out as the phantom suspect because he knew that it would resonate. But more disturbing is that, what was this guy from the police department? Who knows? What units did he work with?
He was a detective. What, that's violent crimes?
Homicide. He investigated these murders. So that man with that kind of mindset, who totally fabricated an incident and said it was so how many of these cases that are solved were really solved when you have somebody who thinks like that, who was found to be a liar, committed perjury?
They tried multiple charges. But they said this dude had just robbed another convenience store. They said the second victim they shot this year had just done like 4 robberies in a row. Or like,
Right.
By the way, Father contributed to the case law. He was one of the investigators.
really?
Yeah, that's.
Then you have the violent crimes impact meeting. When we had that officer Richford arrested for protecting a drug dealer, robbing, whatever. Part of his plea bargain was to snitch on other officers, which they found over 10 officers who were guilty of falsifying police reports. Those officers have never been identified. This is the same unit that's, multiple in custody deaths, multiple charges. The jump out was not, because they're always the ones doing whatever they want. Now the SES, the Special Enforcement Section, which is doing the same thing. Responsible for killing the second this year. They said, oh, he shot himself in the head. He's in the car and he shot himself.
Got so scared. Which is what they would have said about me if the sniper got shot, by the way. I already know how it works. I already know about the drop. I know a little bit more.
With this case, search the Baltimore Spectator. Very interesting.
No, literally, that was the game plan. The snipers run the roof open, you got a shot, so you get it. It took some of the same class today. So,
Back to what Leo was saying about centralizing all this was an idea he was talking about before.
We could have like a WordPress site, Baltimore Sun debunked. Or something like that.
Mainstream media.
Well, yeah, just major media in general, because everybody
We can get
follows.
each one of them. Each one of the medias here in Maryland, and the ones that we know, they are structured in alignment with the political party in power here. And what they do is keep the public agitated and fearful while they do their black men, while they do what they do. They want to justify building new prisons. They want to justify spending money on policing. But the same crimes that have, look, you close rec centers, but you open up curfew centers.
Right.
You got 24-hour curfew centers when you couldn't even pay for an 8-hour rec center. So if you lost that money there, how did you get the money to fund this? Now, what you're going to do with the curfew centers is feed the prison industry, because now I grabbed your daughter, your son, and I'm holding him, and he's become agitated. He became a threat. Now he's committed an assault. So while I was holding him in my detention center, I can now send him to the detention center. Now,
Cash for children.
Police athletic league here, everybody remember that? Police athletic.
yeah.
Different set of rec centers under police budget, but officers who volunteered to be part of this program. And Mentor is a great program, by the way, because the guys who were there, they wanted to be there. They weren't assigned to. Well, they cut down. They said there was no budget.
They cut it out because anything in this city that's going to save your youth is not going to feed the prison industry.
Remember they had vans, they picked up the kids,
Yeah.
they took them home and everything. This was a great program.
Yeah.
You know what they use those vans for now? The
It's a transfer.
The same ones that were taking these kids to basketball games and all that, now they're rounding them up and,
And you know, go ahead.
But even before that, with the Big Brothers Big Sister program, remember that?
barely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's still going on with the why, but it's going on through the funding of the agencies that they want. They're not in the areas that are hardest struck. They're in the areas that are already safe.
And it's privately funded.
Exactly.
It's private, so like, yeah, people give their own money for that.
But other than that, I just sent out a post about Obama supposedly, I don't know if I saw it or not.
If y'all, you gotta follow Mondo. He doesn't tweet much, but just Facebook stuff.
Yeah, I put it out there, I don't care.
We gotta strengthen both sides.
Yeah, I know.
Leo,
But there's a post that I just put out where Obama supposedly cutting the whole pipeline to prison thing. I'm watching that really close. And where he's saying, I'm just putting it out there. I didn't agree with it, I'm just saying.
Food stamps, Medicaid.
Since he bringing this up about Obama, I got locked up because I was
Chicago.
I'm from Chicago, all right? I was making a movie, a documentary about the prison industry, straight up, inside, the whole thing, from start to finish, all right? The lawyers that get paid to lock you up, the politicians, the whole shebang. I named the politicians, and I made a book about it, all right? All of this stuff is documented, very well documented, the names, the addresses, the politicians. And what they did is they took my property in both states, the state of Maryland and the state of Illinois. Right here is a court order to return my property. And then what it was videos. This was in 2010. That was the case I got locked up in Illinois. This was in 2007 when I first started this, because I was doing the prison industry from 1986 when the war on drugs started in 1977. The Iran-Contra, I was in the Navy. We transported drugs. It wasn't about it was not just about don't ask, don't tell. We as military people transported knowingly and willingly at the expense and knowledge of our government.
Oliver North.
Got rich quick. Oliver North put them drugs in our community. We helped.
Yeah.
Okay? And what I did is I kept a diary of everything I'd done. It was my 401k. This toilet that I put in front of the courthouse, if you look at it, it says evidence. And none of that toilet says bomb.
You're the first name, the terrorist.
All right, and they labeled this toilet a terrorist act, a bomb, all right? And what the toilet says is do not destroy. This is evidence. I had a case against Governor O'Malley, Bank of America, and my son in Baltimore City, February the 24th, 2011. That toilet was evidence for that case. But they locked me up to keep that case from coming to light. And I've been fighting this case ever since. Everybody that came to my trial, seen that I won the trial. I fired my lawyer, I defended myself. It was stupid, but it had to be done. Because they were selling us out. Schellenberger, Bernstein worked with the public defenders in this state to sell black, Hispanic, and poor white straight to the prison industry. And I can prove it because I was there. They did what they did to this man because me and this man was live streaming. And we was getting ready.
Literally, like the last act.
Now, our last act together, we was live streaming November the 27th. 7 days later, they locked him up after we did a live stream in front of City Hall. Right in front of City Hall. And this was our plan, was develop our own form of media to contradict what's going on. Now, me personally, I beat the media up when I see them. I chase them off the block. I don't even like them to even put the cameras up. When they see me, they break themselves. Just that simple. That's how you gotta treat them. If you don't treat them like that, they're gonna keep treating you. So I've established my presence. He's established his. This man is just creating a whole new industry for us.
I love this man.
Yeah.
Let me ask y'all something. This is so important to develop independent media in a city like this. I'll tell you why. I mean, I've traveled around the world. I have a family that looks like the United Nations, literally. You look at me now, you're never going to be part Chinese, but I am. You know, it's a small part, but it's a real part. I say all that because what's been very curious about Baltimore to me is literally the makeup of the media. You have a city that's 70, maybe more % black, and you look at the media and, well, that's
The bobbleheads on the news.
What that would be like, it would be like if we went to, say,
San Francisco.
Who's telling the story of who? But you understand what I'm saying? It's like we have people going into black communities telling stories that's supposed to be about the suffering and the travails of black people, but they're not black people. Now, anyone can tell a story, don't get me wrong, but you mean to tell me that with Morgan State College, there are no black qualified writers, I guess. Because that's why all these years I've been here, you haven't seen any of these people working for this.
Well, and Erica Green is black and one of the best writers for the Sun.
Yeah, she's pretty good.
The education column is pretty straight up. So,
but that's what I mean. It shouldn't be like, well, yeah, there is the one or two exceptions.
right.
Yeah, but soon as she gets to the point where she starts caring about the community, she out of here. I can show you, like I said, I've been doing this since 2006. I can show you where they recycle writers
Yeah, sure.
and reporters, and
But see,
when we put the
what
camera on,
she does
And she is good, I like
keeps shit pretty neutral, which is what a major newspaper, it's like, we can
Not this.
have a left-leaning newspaper that spits the real radical side. The Sun, the Baltimore Sun, is supposed to shine the light on everything
Light
equally.
for all.
And like, so she does a pretty good job of that, of keeping it balanced. That's why I don't look at the Sun very much, but this is like so obviously slanted. It's
But they're the only
obscene.
game in town right now.
But so we've been complaining a lot. Can we get back to how we're gonna fix it?
I want Leo's idea. He had a great idea
They're all
of
in
Long City.
Okay.
Back. And
Yeah.
What I've been thinking, we need to put all these little branches we have together put a WordPress, here's the section for, your articles, here's the section for our videos, here's the section for our radio. All these people, we have multiple people.
I love radio.
Podcasts, we got, State of the City, we got Shock right here. We can put all of our networks together onto a single platform. And,
That doesn't allow the Zuckerbergs.
But I think you gotta do a multi-hit too.
Oh, yeah.
We can talk about police brutality.
Oh, yeah, no.
I mean, we have to talk about all the issues because it's all about not only economics, but it's also about the corporate. I mean, you're surrounded by 9 hospitals and then clinics that are here. Healthcare is a major thing that's bringing money in. Now, if you're not going to prison, then we're putting your child or even the adult on some kind of drug. And if I'm putting you on drugs, that also kind of nullifies your voting ability, because I know if I drug you enough, you're not going out to vote, and then you're just privy to anything that goes down. So us to reach those people too. I mean, because we gotta do voter registration, you know what I mean? We gotta get involved in other aspects too. Because how are we gonna create an environment in which we can disseminate this information and then have to pass it on to someone else too? Because literally, we got a brain trust right here. But right outside these doors right here, these same individuals, and those books that are on the shelf, have to reflect what we're talking about here. Because every aspect of our lives is also monitored and everything.
See you later, brother.
Program. That same program, anything, yes, which is juvenile crime right up the street here, takes kids out of the juvenile system and tries to transition them into everyday life. Now, no, for us, we have to also learn to deal with them on buses, on the train. I mean, I know it sounds like a big, big job, but actually, they're actually looking at us to see how we react to situations. And I think we're the best people that can do it.
Yeah, and I was going to make a suggestion that goes along with that, which is that I'd like to see a dealing with the police and media training, but that's not just a one-way. That's like, oh, here, we're adults and we know what you should know, but that's also like dialogical. And so what are some of your experiences? Because we know that if you go by the books
With police?
okay. Yeah, you're gonna go to jail because you can't tell the police that you have rights. They don't want to hear that shit, especially if you're alone. So there's like two tracks to take. One is to like really like kowtow and get yourself out of it, which sometimes for self-preservation is just what you have to do, especially if you're alone. And then on the other tip, even if you're doing that, like how do you memorize a badge number? Like how do you, that while you're kowtowing and getting yourself out of harm's way, how do you memorize the badge number? What do you do as soon as you get home? How do you report it? And then also, if you are with a group of people or you're in a well-lit public place, how do you exercise your rights without escalating the situation? But also for us to listen to the young people about what they see and their stories and how we can support them.
How do you set up live streaming on your smartphone?
Right. How do you set up live streaming on your smartphone?
That's what I
And
do.
like, do you want to like cut a little hole in your jacket pocket so that you can just like drop it in and walk up to them and they don't even know you're filming? I don't know, maybe you do. Your mom might get mad, but.
That's kind of unethical.
I tell you, one of the keys, and of course you can't guarantee this all the time, but key, not to be alone.
Yeah, I always have a party there.
I have from all of my work doing this is me getting locked up at the impound station. And a lot of people watch it and they don't realize, well, if I'm being handcuffed and locked up, it's my baby who's filming.
Yeah.
Nobody still knows who Lady T is who helped me because we planned the whole thing out. I'm gonna go with the camera, they're all gonna focus on me. Nobody's looking at you, they don't even know you're in there with me. She went in well ahead of me and was sitting in the lobby playing with her phone, whatever. And as soon as I walked in, she puts it on record. We knew that they would pounce on me recording, but I was being recording them. That case got thrown out because the report said I was being belligerent, I was doing all this thing, and I went to the prosecutor, I gave him the DVD, and I said, well, after you watch it, you tell me if this case is going forward or not. There was nobody being belligerent. I just had a camera in my hand in a public place. You're allowed to do that. So it didn't save me from getting arrested yet, but I'll tell you what did happen. I didn't get bothered for a long time after that. I mean, eventually they just, whatever, they forget you. But key, like I said, as much as possible, not being alone. Hey, there's gonna be several of us. It's gonna be our word against theirs, not my word against them.
And
You see, you know,
it's gonna be the key because that's what they use against you.
Yes.
You got to use it against them.
Yeah.
If you put 911 on your speed dial, you hit 911 if you by yourself, and that records the call and that goes to an operator. That operator has to call you back or talk to you physically. So when they hit that 911, hand it to that police officer and let him explain why.
and you know what else that does?
It
Timestamps.
It timestamps what's happening to you. and it protects you. I ain't saying it saves you. I ain't gonna get it twisted, but it is something to help you. And that's the simplest tool that you can use. 911 on speed dial. It works for you and your community if you get raped, robbed, or whatever, and the same thing work against the police.
Let me give you a quick tool on this. I'm sorry. No.
We haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just gonna, cause you did say a lot of things about, or you did ask that we brainstorm solutions. So I just want to give my, my skill set, my whatever I can do. But I love visual anthropology. I'm a documentary person. I want to get better at that. And one of the things that I've noticed recently is the viral kind of things that galvanize the community, like Baltimore, You're Breaking My Heart, that article, now everyone's talking about it, there's responses and blah, blah, blah. And, you're talking about the youth who have these stories and the police that you can talk to and this group of individuals doing this in this space and you can record all of that, you can. And, my thing is I want to put that in one, I want to do that in one project. I want to do something that maybe, it's cliche, but it galvanizes the community. If we have, strips of paper with a website, we give it out at bus stops, the only thing on that website is this documentary. It's it's not that long, people can pay attention to it, people will pick it up, so.
That's how they did the underground back in the 1800s, a little strip of paper, a little bit on the tree. We gotta take 2 steps back.
I'm not afraid to talk to people, so I'm talking get on the bus and be do you have an issue with this, do you have an issue with this, do you have an issue with this, go here, that's it. Not this long speech, just let people seek out the information, but make it very easy for them to get it and, have it all very concise. Because, I love what you do with your stuff and recording and everything, but sometimes it's just too long. Sometimes you just don't have time. Something that's concise, it's very
90 seconds.
so.
That's good.
You asked for a tip to change the subject, but on the same bigger topic. A real life tool that I put together in my street journal in class about these tips. There's 2 simple apps that you can have. Of course, you know about what is it, Dropbox, I think? But Google has one too. Immediately when I take pictures on this phone, they're uploaded to the cloud. They just take this phone, stop on, smash on, the photo's somewhere else. And so is the video. I have 2 different apps doing it. They're in 2 different places under 2 different passwords. The stuff doesn't die. It doesn't just go away. Every video, every picture I take, as soon as it's done, it starts going up.
The downfall of
I do the same thing.
They can take this and remove all.
And they do take it.
There's apps that you're live.
They can with this.
And it's automatic bypass,
That's
you still have your.
I feel like
That's important. If you're gonna do this stuff, that's important. Because even if they're found to be wrong and in violation, or your phone's gone, your evidence is gone, smash it. You have to be prepared for that, because that's what these people do.
Take that loss.
And lastly, I want to plug one of my upcoming projects. Why? Because I think there's at least 2 people here who might be interested in helping me with it. So this is a cheap plug. But you talk about the place where everybody can go, and I would like this to be in concert with that, linked to this or whatever. But one thing that really bothers me, I've been covering crime in the city. Baltimore Spectator's been up for 5 years. I was doing it longer than that. I did it anonymously under a totally different name, which I still haven't told people. Some people know. I think everybody who dies a violent death, it's a sad thing, deserves their story told. Whatever that story is. Not a blurb, also dead was Leo Zimmerman. Okay. So, change back Something you saw in the spirit I did live tonight, where we took turns, we all watched a different 11 o'clock newscast at the same time to see who would cover the shooting that happened. Jay-Z didn't even touch it at all. They didn't even mention it happened. And I forgot which one. You helped. But the point is this. That adds to a feeling of selflessness and low self-worth to kids in this town. It really does. Because if I was a little kid and that was my buddy who died, and they didn't even mention it on the news or whatever, I mean, let's face it, it's happening, but they're not covering it.
in fact, they tore down a street memorial
They love it.
to do it.
So real quick.
You can even have your own.
Real quick, to tell you what this is, we can talk about it another time, doesn't mean Twitter, network. I'm coming up, I'm putting together now, I don't know what the .com name will be, but the name of the site is Baltimore Departed. And I want to numerically document every single murder that's happened this year. And we can backtrack and add others as we fill in, but it's very simple. As information is available, crowdsource is added in. a name, a picture, the date, comment section where
What's
people
that?
who know this person, but it will all be in one place. It's not necessarily a news site, it's literally the people who unfortunately have fallen victim to the violence in the city. To my knowledge, we don't have anything like that.
That's a good idea.
You can go there and it will be searchable. If you just know the street where it happened, you put that in, gosh, 12 people died there? I didn't know that, or whatever. But so I'm looking for help with this is why I'm bringing this up. And this is in concert with everything else. It's not a competition or anything like that. And of course, you can link the news coverage to each death, and that would be interesting too. Wow, only one story got death, and the only way it will be successful is through crowdsourcing because we can't all monitor and know everything.
Yeah.
So hey, wait a minute. Wow, I just found a new article on such and such murder. You put it on there, and well, how does that sound to you guys?
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea.
Be in touch with me. You know my email, my Twitter.
That's correct, no.
I just had a question. So, we do have a lot more of these, right? Of these classes or sessions or whatever. But, I want to know a tip to like memorize a badge number real quick or like what to say to a police officer when you're in a situation where you're obviously watching them being.
Keep addressing him by his name.
His name is Sir.
No, what's your name again?
Her name is Sir.
Olga?
Olga.
Olga? Officer Olga. Are you going to arrest me today? You keep saying it. And you're memorizing it as you're saying, Officer Olga, why are you in my face? I do it all the time. You can see it on some of my videos. I'm doing it. It's annoying them, but I'm doing it so I remember it.
Ask them for their business.
Because once you get arrested, so much is going to happen. They're going to take everything on you. Any note you have, that's gone, whatever. And you're going through the traumatic experience of it. But if I said Officer Olga 10 times, oh God, that's Officer Olga, wasn't it? I mean, that's just one little tip I have. You just keep saying their name. And do it in a respectful way.
And try not to be emotional. We all guilty of it sometimes. We can't.
Don't get mad.
We do because we might put that extra emphasis on certain words. The police got this little.
Don't do what I do.
The police got if your voice and your decibel is louder than this, or certain keywords you use, that's when they go into their dumb ass mode.
I like that. That's the official mode. It's on the meter.
All it is you get more bees with honey than you do a stick. And that's all good to the day when you got to it. Because it's hard to hold your emotions when you see these things going on and to bite your tongue. And I am one that is really got to work on that.
Poor Mama City. See, that's just my daughter. There's a lot of great things about the city. And I feel that this other crap overshadows it. And ultimately, that's kind of why we're here, you know what I mean? It's like, we can, more of this stuff could be out there, but there's this nagging element in the room of violence and how it's being dealt with effectively, and how we have this police department that's more part of the problem than our solution. I mean, at least that's my summary of it, you know?
So true. If you ever knew about the 60s, the 50s, and the 40s, this is the same thing. They're killing us on an astronomical rate the same way that they was lynching. Except now they don't have to say the Ku Klux Klan is doing it. You got 4 black police officers killing black men, so therefore that
It's not racist.
sensitivity is not racist.
It's not racist.
But it's still a racist act.
Yeah.
Because you completed the Stockholm syndrome where these officers have identified with their captors and have claimed that we are the enemy.
So what do you call it, classism, elitism, or what have you? It's definitely, there's an element of us versus them.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Officers, there is one of the criminologists did a timeline of the mentality of an officer, you know. There's a certain amount of that get in there because they really want to be good. Some change that, things they have, they become jaded and all that. It quickly becomes us versus them. They see the whole world is us, the police, and them, criminal suspects. Everybody. That's why you get shot for carrying and draw cash in hand. Again, a criminal act, let's give it that, but a capital crime? Probably not.
Well, in Baltimore, you got corruption. These y'all's problem. Look like in D.C., New York, Chicago, Harbor Town. That corruption is that new blue line. It really has nothing to do with, I joined the force to see the constitutional laws. It's about, if you're on this force and you're in a particular section or department, and it's not just the narcs that are taking money, you know what I mean? And it is all about the money. It's quite clear and it's quite apparent. Now, it's our job to prove it, you know what I mean? Because they do a good job of covering it up, you know what I mean? But you got judges taking money for children going to juvenile courts. on not even misdemeanors and telling them not to get lawyers. I mean, this is literally happening. And I mean, the ACLU is talking about it, Alfred Justice is not only talking about it, but we're going now, this is going to the Supreme Court. But nonetheless, it's getting proven now by people with their phones and everything else. So this is a totally different, atmosphere that's going on now, which is perfect. Now, notes of how to pass it on to our children and even adults. Like, we have a venue such as this, we do it at Plus 480 Poets, where we do slam contests, we do the picnics, we give out freebie, because you have a bookstore. Knowledge is here. Knowledge is on stage right here. In order to get it out there, we have to disseminate it. And I think these are some of the best venues to do it. But you also got to know that we're not taking any, we're not laying down on this. We have to let people know. So I don't believe per se, but I do believe in self-defense by any means necessary. And when I bite down and fight down, I was COINTELPRO'd into thinking that I was doing something in the military that was for the people and by the people, and came back here and found out I became the enemy. And therefore, now, this is the same enemy that I'm fighting here, so I would do any means necessary, especially what they taught me, other than being seen on camera taking somebody out.
Okay, so I think we might be looking at like a networked bunch of websites rather than just one, which the advantage of that too is it's harder to take out 10 websites than it is one, although we could have one central one that's like an index.
It would be like a spider, like a spider's web, one be this and everything feed off of it, like with a hand.
Could have a central one.
Like locate so everybody can share their links to that.
Yeah, and if someone wants to make a graphic, I don't know, a couple
Several
All right, so there you have it, people. We had our meeting here at Red Emma's coffee shop here in San Francisco. San Francisco, guys, sorry. We're in Baltimore. And we're going to wrap up the meeting here in just a second. I really thank you for watching. The next broadcast will be next week on February 20th. We'll be here in Baltimore for there's trying to build some kind of water purification place here. I don't know the details, but it will be on February 20th. Please join me. Thank you very much for watching. This is Freeman Sullivan signing out, and have a good evening. Bye-bye, people.